Hey folks, before we get started, I just wanted to tell you, you can unlock unlimited access to political news, commentary, opinion, and a whole lot more at inforum.news/port for only 99 cents a month for your first 3 months. Hurry, get this limited time offer at inforum.news/port now. This podcast is brought to you by the North Dakota Petroleum Foundation. From heating our homes, empowering our vehicles, to cell phones, clothing, and medical equipment, oil and natural gas makes everyday life better. North Dakota Oil and Natural Gas, advancing the possibilities. Learn more at ndpetroleumfoundation.org. Welcome to Plain Talk, and happy to be with you this Friday. And we're going to do something unique, at least for this podcast. We're not going to talk about politics at all, which I'm sure all you political nerds are now immediately hitting stop on Spotify. But today is a very special day. I mean, technically, and baseball does it weird now, where it's we don't have like one opening day anymore. It's kind of opening week. But for a Yankees fan, opening day was supposed to be yesterday, but they got rained out. So opening day is today. It's baseball season, and which is so great, right? And baseball's so perfect because you come out of the long, dreary winter. Everybody had to sit through football season, which was just terrible. And now finally, we get something fun. We get baseball. I don't know if everybody agrees with me on football. I don't like football that much, but I don't blame anybody who likes football. You like football, that's your thing, that's fine. But I like baseball, and it's baseball time. And there's some big changes for baseball. We had the lockout, which was kind of ugly over the offseason, even delayed the season a little bit. And there's some big rule changes. So anyway, I thought I would have some of the committed baseball fans. Chad Oban, of course, he's a LA Dodgers fan and is a baseball guy. And our Congressman Kelly Armstrong, who everybody knows is also a huge, huge baseball nerd. And the first thing I wanted to ask you guys, and Kelly, maybe you can speak to this. I feel like political nerds are overrepresented in baseball nerd world. And I've always wondered why that is. And I think it's just kind of like baseball, first of all the sports, has like its own history, right? We had our own civil rights movement. Like there's no other sport where a team can have a championship drought that lasts literally a century. So I think there's a history there. I think the sport has its own political parties. We have the National League and the American League. We have our own like Watergate scandal. We had the Black Sox scandal and everything. I think there's a lot there that appeals. Like it has its own economic system with like sabermetrics and everything. I think there's just, do you see that too? It just seems like there's a lot of political people who love baseball.
I do, and I noticed it a lot when I went to Congress, and I think one of the reasons is throughout the course of the farm system and how they did it compared to other sports is there are a lot of really cool minor league stadiums, and they exist in communities outside of New York or LA, and they're great events. I mean, just from a standpoint, and then obviously you grow up in a place like North Dakota. I would argue North Dakota has some of the best American Legion baseball parks in the country. And we take it really seriously. It's a summer event. It always has been. And, there's weird connections. Kevin Brady, who is the ranking member of Ways and Means and the dean of the Texas delegation, played second base for the Rapid City Post 22 Hard Hats.
Wow.
It's a weird story. So former Congressman Rick Berg took me out to D.C. To introduce me when I was running as a candidate. And, of course, it's politics. Kevin Brady's the ranking member. It's for all intents and purposes, the most important committee in D.C. And he's in there trying to talk to me. Rick Berg brings me in to do all of this. And Kevin Brady I end up talking about Rapid City Post 22 for a half hour. And I think Rick Berg was like, who are these crazy people? And why did I let them meet each other?
Well, and that's a legit Legion team, right? They've had like Mark Ellis came through. There's a bunch of Ellis came through.
Legitimately, their coach was an icon. I think, listen, it's probably the most successful and best American Legion baseball program in the country.
Yeah, I had some cousins that played on that team back in the day that went on to play college baseball. But Rob, to your original point, I agree that political nerds and baseball nerds sort of line up often. I mean, you don't have to look very far back to Senator Kent Conrad. who was
Huge
a
baseball
notorious baseball nerd. At one point, rumored to be MLB commissioner.
Which would have been fantastic.
I would have.
Yes.
All partisanship aside, I would have voted for that.
Yes.
If they let me vote, not that I get a vote.
He and George Mitchell were two of the rumored commissioners at that time. But yeah, I interned in Washington, and baseball was. I think I went to like 4 or 5 games in Baltimore at the time. Over a 3-month period of time. It's just part of the culture there. Speaking of beautiful parks, Camden Yards, absolutely, it's beautiful.
One of the what does George Will call them? The great cathedrals of baseball. Camden Yards definitely one. And by the way, I would still vote for Kent Conrad to be commissioner. I think we need a new commissioner. This sport is getting not so fan friendly. I was looking at the Yankees, and I think Yankees fans have it worse because they're kind of a marquee team in the league. So I think there's always a scramble. Everybody wants the Yankees to come and play because the Yankees draw a big crowd. Everybody wants the Yankees on their streaming service. So I was looking this year. I think the Yankees. I gotta subscribe to Peacock. I gotta subscribe to Amazon Prime. I gotta subscribe to Apple Plus. I gotta subscribe to ESPN and Fox just to watch all the Yankees games if I want to watch them. Like it's all over the place. So they got to figure that out. Baseball's never been very fan friendly when it comes to watching the game sometimes, especially if you don't live in your team's market. I don't know, Rob. I think thinking about over the last 10 or 15 years and how much more access I have to Dodgers games now than I did 10 years ago. That's true.
It may be going in a bad place now, but I think they've done incredible work in the last decade or so.
MLB.TV is a pretty great product. And by the way, the Major League Baseball, a early leader in streaming. I mean, before like Netflix was really a thing, you could stream baseball games on your computer to the point where their streaming service, I think at one time, like they were the streaming service behind Hulu for a while. I mean, it's kind of a whole weird story there. So first of all, let's run through some of the rule changes. First of all, National League adopting the designated hitter. Kelly, what do you think about that?
You know how I feel about the designated hitter. I don't think it's but I think it's probably a good idea. Last year there were 2,500 more strikeouts than hits. This isn't the first time some of this happened. Remember in 1968, Bob Gibson broke baseball.
Yeah.
Right. That's when they lowered the mound. And
can you imagine being so singularly good out of the hundreds of people who are playing professional baseball at any given moment to be so singularly good that they have to change the rules of the game to rein you in? Is just amazing.
And just like you were talking about early streaming, baseball lends itself to being able to listen to it if you can't watch it completely for 4.5 hours or however long it is. But anything, I have a longer rant about analytics. I don't know if you want me to do it now or later. But
is there a better place than now? We're doing a whole podcast.
So I think analytics in basketball, right? You shoot 3-pointers. The game is faster. I went to a Wizards game. I am not a basketball guy. And I swear it looked like how my 12-year-olds play basketball. They run down, they shoot, they turn around, they run back, and they shoot. Analytics in football, more 4th down conversions, more all of those different things. They actually help the game. I think analytics in baseball for how it has worked and taking marquee pitchers out in 4 innings and running through these things and again, the 2,500 strikeouts more than hits, they have to do something. It's they hit I think last year, the league batting average was lower than 250, which again is the lowest since 1968. It's strikeouts and home runs and really slow in between. And so anything we can do to get more people interested in watching a game that aren't nerds like the three of us. I love a 1-0 pitching match. I also do not like 150 pitching changes in April.
But Kelly, don't you think that batters have to adjust to that, right? I mean, Tony Gwynn would hit 450 right now in Major League Baseball. And I don't get me wrong, I hate like the playoffs when it seems like half the playoff games there's a opener that's going rather than having your 3 or 4 starters go out and Oral Hershiser sort of bulldogging his way through the 88 World Series. I hate that. But at some point, hitters have to also adjust to that.
Except they don't care about average.
Yeah.
It's not that the hitters aren't adjusting. They're not stealing. They're not hitting running. They're running straight analytics saying, I'd rather hit 240
and hit a bomb.
with 40 bombs on my team.
240 would be good.
RBIs.
I'd rather hit 200. I mean, listen, we employ Joey Gallo on our team, so I know all about the what is it? The three true outcomes, right? Yep. Which and listen, part of the problem with baseball though is, I mean, on one hand, it's like analytics has allowed a path for, right, the whole Moneyball thing and all that stuff has found a path for teams to win in creative ways and maybe win without having the huge payrolls and stuff. That's great, but baseball is also a product that needs to be entertaining to people who want to watch it. And to Kelly's point, you know, how many pitching changes do you want to watch, right? Every time there's a pitching change, we got to go to a commercial break, and goodness gracious.
And I think that's what I mean, Rob. The analytics, and I mean the development of analytics and showing you how the best way to win your game help the NBA, help the NFL, make it more entertaining. I think that's true. I think in baseball the opposite has happened. Your best option in the highest likelihood for you to win any particular ball game makes it a harder product to watch, and that's something they're going to have to figure out.
Yeah, and I think one of the changes that has been good over the last couple of years is the 3-batter minimum for relief pitchers, because that was getting out of control with lefty relievers coming in facing one batter, and then there's a pitching change every single batter, so that's helped some. Go ahead, Kelly.
Do either of you guys know how they're enforcing the pitch clock? I like the idea of I mean, how's the enforcement? So what if you go over the time? Like, I know, because I know they're putting one in to help speed it up, but how are they enforcing it? I haven't seen anything.
And are they just putting it in the minors this year, or?
I don't know. 2023, the pitch clocks will be used in 2023, so that's actually coming next year. And by the way, speaking of defensive shifts, which are one of the big, analytical driven things that I think has kind of made the game less watchable, those are going to be banned. But it is going to be interesting because when they put pitching clocks in the minors, it didn't make it, I think immediately it kind of made a difference until the players learned that the umpires weren't really enforcing it. So, I think if you're going to have something like the pitch clock, it can't just be, I got a pitch or the umpire's going to get mad at you. A lot of the pitchers don't care if the umpire's mad at them. They're just going to take their time anyway. There's got to be some sort of a consequence on the field if you violate. I don't know, maybe the ump automatically calls a ball or something if you're over the clock.
Yeah, the thing about banning the shifts, how is that going to work mechanically? I mean, can the shortstop just go over to second base? I mean, right up to the line, or are there going to be specific windows that players have to play in?
Yeah, I think actually the shift, well, first of all, the shift's not new, right? They used to put a shift on Ted Williams.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think the shift's probably actually easier, right? Because you draw quadrants and say you have to play somewhere within this place. And if you're anywhere outside of this place, basically it's like T-ball. I coached my kids' T-ball team. The first thing we did for 3 days in practice is we had everybody running in and out of the dugout to their positions, which you would think would be easier than it is. It was probably the most entertaining thing I ever did coaching baseball in my life.
Well, I'm sure that it made the fans like you, Kelly, because that I'm sure made the game much more efficient. I mean, I've watched kids trying to find their positions, and it's not pretty.
Of all the rule changes, I think banning the shift is kind of because I'm kind of for, I love baseball's history, but I also let's try new things. But banning the shifts is one thing, because I kind of believe the batters should adapt, right? I mean, I watched Mark Teixeira, right, when they're shifting against Mark Teixeira, who was a wonderful, wonderful hitter, but just insisted, I'm just going to keep trying to hit through the shift, right? The whole left side of the field is open to you, Mark Teixeira. Hit a ball over there, right? Drop down a bunt or something. They're giving it to you. Wouldn't do it. Just kept slugging away. And it was like watching a man just try to batter his way through a brick wall with his forehead. Stop it, right? Become a better batter and try to use the other part of the field if they're just going to give it to you. So I don't understand that. I feel like that's the thing, why can't batters adapt?
Yeah, and going back to DH for a second, until the 2020 season, I was very much a no DH in the NL kind of guy. I like the double switch. I like, the sort of strategy in the NL. And then the Dodgers won the World Series in 2020, and they were able to use their depth. So I'm a huge hypocrite when it comes to the DH. I think it's advantageous to the Dodgers because of their payroll and what have you. So I'm now pro DH. until the Dodgers roster goes to crap again.
I will tell you, I never understood the people who argued that the double switch was this like chess mastermind strategy thing. It wasn't.
Well, it's more than the AL just handing a lineup card and then the manager sitting there for 9 innings.
Well,
nobody goes to a baseball game to watch a manager.
Nobody goes to a baseball game to watch the pitchers strike out 5 times a game.
Some of them are hilarious.
Okay, but unintentionally hilarious, right? Come on.
When Bartolo Colon hit a home run, when Ryu from the Dodgers, now the Blue Jays, hit a home run, those were magical moments, Rob. And I don't know why you don't want the next generation of baseball fans to experience those magical moments.
Okay, so 1 or 2 magical moments out of the 1,000 or so at-bats that pitchers, or however many it is, thousands of at-bats that pitchers rack up during the course of a year. No thanks. That's not enough magic for me. And I'm in the American League. I'm just watching this stuff. Like, I don't even watch that many National League games. And I still can't stand it. Like when the Yankees would go play in a National League park, and it's like, what the... And by the way, I'm still salty over us losing Chin-Ming Wong, right? Who was our wonderful, wonderful power sinker ball pitcher who got injured because he had to run the bases at a National League park. Got injured. His career pretty much ended. He was never the same after that. So, no. I mean, I'm tired of watching my pitchers and like chewing my... Pitchers get injured enough, right? Let's not make them bat and run the bases too.
I think of the three of us, we're all going to agree, right? The one rule change that is absolutely terrible is that we're going to turn baseball uniforms into NASCAR uniforms.
Yeah.
Like we're going to allow sponsorship.
That and the ghost runners and extra innings. I hope you guys agree with that BS.
Right. That's going away. Chad, I think that's going away.
Kelly, they brought it back. It was supposed to go away. And now
they did?
Brought it back. I believe so. I think in the last few weeks.
No. I'm reading right here. There will be no man on second base to start extra innings. That was fake news, Chad.
I don't know about that. I'm gonna do some research after the show.
I printed out an NBC Sports article because I wanted to remember all the rule changes.
What was the date on the article?
Wait. It says that's a postseason rule. So maybe during the regular season there is. Because it says here that's a postseason rule. So maybe they just won't do it.
They said they're getting rid of it, and now it's come back.
It's terrible.
It's so dumb.
Yeah. I don't know. Like of all, because we're talking about like the games are too long, they're too more. I don't know. I like when you get bonus baseball and you go into extra innings and everybody's just grinding away, trying to get that hit, because that's one of the beautiful things about baseball is it's slow and it's plodding, and then all of a sudden they get a couple of hits. And now it's on, right? I mean, I don't like when put the guy on second, somebody gets a single, the game's over. Like, come on. Also, that's Little League stuff. Ghost runners are what we did when we were playing over on Edison Elementary Field, my friends and I, and we didn't have enough people for a team, so we had ghost runners, right? And that was fun. Sandlot baseball is great, but we're watching professionals here. We don't need sandlot rules.
And I'll butcher the quote, right? But the quote is like baseball's 2.5 hours of boredom intermixed with 30 minutes of fantastic action.
Yeah.
But isn't that part of the beauty of baseball? You go to a baseball game, you don't have to be locked in on every single pitch. I usually am. But like Erin can go with me to a baseball game and drink beer and eat nachos and talk to her friends, and it's the whole experience. I mean, it's just beautiful.
Even listening to it on the radio, it's like there's kind of like a talk show. There's a talk show, but like within the confines of like a baseball game, right? So like for me, I'm always listening to Susan Waldman and John Sterling, talking and it's just fun, right? They're talking about all sorts of weird stuff, and then something happens on the field. And I don't know. It's one of the things I love about baseball.
Well, and you can't hide, right? Like there's no lonelier place in any of professional sports, maybe in the world, than the pitching mound when you can't find a strike zone. Like and you know what? Maybe that's a little bit of why it relates to politics and business, because it is a team sport with individual moments of success and failure. Well, like no matter how good your team is, I'm not going to get a hit off of Noah Syndergaard. Right. Like, so you have the team concept where you win and lose as a team, but you also have these really, really fantastic moments of individual success and failure.
Every at bat's a duel between a batter and a pitcher, and I guess the catcher calling, maybe calling the pitches. But I mean, it's very one-on-one.
And the stress around an October baseball game and everything coming down to one pitch. I remember a few years ago. somebody walked in, I was watching a Dodgers game, and it was ninth inning or whatever, and they just looked at the TV and said, "Why do you do this? Why do you do this to yourself?" Because every pitch is so stressful, and that's what makes it great.
Well, because
and by the way,
I mean, it could be a strikeout, it could be a home run.
Yeah, Kelly, I think you could hit Noah Syndergaard because he's never healthy enough to actually pitch.
No, fair point. Fair point. He's not my problem anymore.
So
you have to throw left-handed.
One of the things I like about baseball too is it seems like the game just finds the person, right? Like the minute you're running low and like the manager has to do something weird, like put a relief pitcher in the outfield. Who do you think they're going to hit the ball to? Right? I mean, it's like for some reason the game just finds the person that it needs to find to make it an issue. But Kelly, let's talk about that for a moment. What happened to you in childhood that you ended up a Mets fan?
So the 1986 Mets, I was 10 years old. That's what happened.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to talk about something capturing, right? Like you've got Lenny Dykstra, Darryl Strawberry, Doc Gooden, Bobby Ojeda, Keith Hernandez. You've got these unbelievable like characters and awesome people and all of that. And, you can only, we all talk, in Western North Dakota, it's a little different. And Chad, I think, well, you're both out here too. You don't have to be a Twins fan, particularly when the only two teams you could watch every day were the Cubs and the Braves. And you just, a 10-year-old kid, I jumped on the bandwagon in 86 and boy, was it a bad wagon to get on. But I don't know if you love the sport and you were me. We used to like I don't know how you didn't fall in love with that team. It was just so fun to watch. Kevin McReynolds, Howard Johnson.
Well, the personalities too are always so.
Yeah, and then I have a very strict rule, and everybody say once they're your team, they're your team.
Amen. Amen, brother. Amen. Yeah, I became a Dodgers fan because you're right. When you're in North Dakota, you sort of are a free agent. You can pick whatever team. But my dad wasn't a very big baseball fan, but he was a Dodgers fan because his brother was a Yankees fan when they were kids. And so I loved baseball as a little kid, became a Dodgers fan. I have a friend of mine who I've been friends with for 40 years. And the reason we're friends is we both showed up the first day of T-ball, both wearing a Dodgers hat. And we're still friends to this day because of it.
That's a great story. I became a Yankees fan because I grew up. You want to talk about being a free agent in North Dakota? I grew up in Alaska, and ostensibly we were at the time the Mariners were our market, but the Mariners were 1,500 miles away from where I lived. So we only had 3 channels in Wasilla, and one Saturday night I don't know what my parents were doing, but I was in front of the TV. And that old Gary Cooper movie, The Pride of the Yankees, came on about Lou Gehrig, right? So for me, it was the history of the Yankees, like Babe Ruth and all this stuff. Babe was hitting more home runs than entire teams at the time, and did it. All the analytics and everything. Babe Ruth dominated the game, and then drank a bunch of beer and hot dogs. Like he had no workout regimen, right? He was a better athlete than people give him credit for, but. What he did was just remarkable. I don't know. That's how I became a Yankees fan. And to Kelly's point, once I started, I never felt like I'm not going to shift allegiances. This is my team, ride or die. And I also got very lucky. When I turned 16, when I was about 16, I really started watching. That was 1996. That was, the beginning of that 90s era Yankees dynasty. So it was, Derek Jeter, Mariano Rivera, came around, 97, 98. That was, Paul O'Neill. Right, the Warrior, David Cohn, Darryl Strawberry. One of my favorite baseball moments of all time is 1998. Who's one? He was one of the Orioles used to have those Jose. It wasn't Jose Mesa. It was the other guy. It was Armando Benitez. He beamed Tino Martinez in the back, right? Tino Martinez, who looks like your accountant, right? Not exactly a flamethrower guy. Beans him in the back. Tino gets mad, charges the mound. Dugout's clear, right? So first of all, one of the all-time greatest brawls in baseball history. The Yankees and the Orioles beating it out. Graham Lloyd, our lefty-on-lefty specialist who pitched, maybe to 2 batters a game or something, chug it all the way in from the dugout, right, to get into this fracas. So it'd been going on for a while. And Armando Benitez he's sitting on the bench in the dugout, and everybody's kind of fighting in front of the dugout, and he's just sitting there, and the camera's zoomed in on him through the punches flying and everything, and you just see him sitting there, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, comes Darryl Strawberry's fist, boom, right in the face. I rewatch the YouTube video of that fight every year before baseball season begins. It's one of my favorite baseball moments. It's Armando Benitez getting it in the mug from Darryl Strawberry.
Kelly, you talked about earlier the Braves and the Cubs were sort of the two games that you could always watch. So, the Cubs and the Braves their rosters were always part of sort of growing up, because I saw a lot more of their games than Dodgers games, right? And a couple of the memories that pop up is when my brother and I used to play in the backyard, we'd throw each other ground balls. And if a ball got through one of our legs, we would yell, "Bob Horner is running," so you can still get him, because Bob Horner was a chubby first baseman for the Braves. And then to this day, there's a constant joke about Sean Dunston. Just wait till Sean Dunston, develops. Once Shawan Dunston develops, he's going to be great. I'm still waiting for him to develop. He's still throwing a $110 from shortstop over to first base, but he never developed the way they thought he would.
Yeah, well, I mean, and you get the best Braves connection alive as a Dodgers fan right now with Freddie Freeman, who not only is, until last year, right, probably the most under the radar superstar that we've seen in my lifetime in baseball, but also just one of the genuinely really good people in the game. Like, it's weird in this era of free agency. Like, did you see when they announced, and what's the new first baseman the Braves signed?
Matt Olson.
Matt Olson from
Did you
from
see
Oakland.
when the GM announced that? Because he almost started crying when he announced it, and they just got a star that's 5 years younger than Freddie Freeman and
cheaper.
Yeah, and cheaper. But in this era of free agency, you don't see that anymore, where it was just this is a good day, but I can't believe that we're I just thought it was really cool. And I'm not a Braves fan, and I mean all of that, but just it's those types of moments. I'll tell you my favorite baseball story of all time at some point in time. But that was just, I thought, really, really just a really cool thing about how much, I mean, you don't win a World Series without guys like that. And that's what I don't think the casual fan knows. You have to have those people on your, Mark Grace for the Arizona Diamondbacks before he kind of went off the rails, right? Like, you have to have those guys on your team. It's a 162 game grind, man. If you've got a bunch of divas that only care about themselves, you are not going to make it.
For the Yankees during that 90s dynasty, it was Scotty Brocious, Scott Will, Paul O'Neill, but even Laura, Scott Brocious, right? Who came out of nowhere to hit over 300. I think he had 20, 30 home runs for the 1998 Yankees, drove in over 100 runners. I mean, he just had playing fantastic third base defense. And who knows other than diehard Yankees fans, who the hell knows who Scott Brocious is?
But did you guys see what Ronald Acuna said about Freddie Freeman yesterday? That he was a terrible teammate. Yeah, but he took
it back right away. And I mean, there's
Freeman.
Stuff like that didn't happen on it. I mean, that's the other problem. As a politician, right, by the way, I do a lot of radio interviews, and you walk out and you're like, was that really the right tone or the right words to use?
Yeah.
Even, what you're kind of trying to say versus what came out. I really hope that story just goes away.
Well, and I thought Freeman handled it really, really well, basically saying, I love Ronald Acuna. He's good for baseball. This was the rules of the team, and we're enforcing them as veterans. I wish it hadn't been a cause of friction. So, Kelly, what's your favorite baseball story? You said you're going to tell us.
Well, this is the easiest story for me in my life, and you want to talk about how baseball walks into world events. My favorite baseball story of all time involves my least favorite team, and Derek Jeter. I mean, it is the first pitch of the third game of the World Series in 2001. It is my favorite baseball story of all time.
George W. Bush throwing out the first pitch.
Listen, I remember two things after September 11th. I remember Jon Stewart telling me it was okay to laugh again. I mean, I'm talking in outside of the real thing. I remember that. I remember watching The Daily Show and Jon Stewart making jokes, and I'm like, okay, it's okay to laugh again. And I remember the George Bush coming out in the third game of the World Series at home in Yankee Stadium. They were down 0-2 by the way, at the time. And I think it is one of the coolest sports moments ever. Side note, we got to go down to the Bush Presidential Library, and we got to spend an hour and a half with former President Bush with, 8 members of Congress. And we all got to ask him a question. And you all know how this works with politicians. I do it to you guys once in a while. So it goes in order. So I'm last. And, you know, of the 8 people, maybe 3 asked a question, 5 gave statements. He's sitting with the former president of the United States, and he had just talked to us for an hour and 15 minutes. But I said, so I'm last, and we've covered all kinds of different topics. And I said, Mr. President, I just would really like you to tell me the story of that day, not just walking out of the dugout. I go, and I said exactly to him what I said to you. I go, because I remember that was the first time I thought as a country we're going to be okay.
Well,
and
also like because how scared we were about another attack. So they had a stadium full of people, and the president of the United States there as well. I mean, was really kind of an act of bravery, just in and of itself. Like, we're not scared of you. We're gonna play a baseball game here.
Yeah, and he had practiced, but not with a vest. And so
I suppose.
He gives this great story. It's like, by the time you get to be the president of the United States, you don't get nervous in speeches anymore, right? You give big speeches, you give small speeches, you've been on campaign stages, you've been at coffee things. He goes, I walked into that dugout and my heart was racing 300 miles an hour. And Derek Jeter walks in and I go, hello, Mr. Jeter. And he goes, hey, Prez. He said it was the first, I mean, it was just the way he tells the story. And I mean, you know, all of the things we do in this partisan thing, there's been a ton written on it. People who tend to hate or have real anger and real hatred and vitriol towards the other side. And he was by no means an exception to that. Should go read what you can about that, because it tells you what kind of people you dislike are sometimes. And it truly was, it was a great story, and it really is my favorite baseball moment of all time.
I would be so terrified that I would throw the ball into the dirt about 10 feet in front of the plate in that moment. I mean, just like it's such a powerful moment to begin with. You know,
Jeter told them if you bounce it, they'll boo you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
we're in New York.
Imagine if
You're in New York.
The 50 Cent move and just like chucked it, you know, like not even close.
Chucked it into the right field bleachers or something. Whatever the hell he did.
The moment gets lost if it's not a decent pitch.
He fired a strike. He did good. Yeah. Let's
We know what Chad's favorite baseball moment of all time was.
Yeah, I mean it's the
early
Gibson
November 2020.
No, it's 88, man. It's the Gibson home run. I mean, I was 12 years old. My brother was 15. At the beginning of that game, he and I had gotten in a fight. And so we were watching the game in different rooms in our house, pissed off at each other, right? Gibson hits the home run. He and I pop up, go running into the hallway, embrace in the hallway. And we talk about the fight still. We don't know what the fight was about. But yeah, the Gibby home run was like what solidified how important baseball is to me, because it was, and then you watch like the behind the scenes footage now and Gibby having his health issues and, you know, the conversation about, you know, him hearing Costas saying there's no way he's going to play, and Gibson's in the locker room, you know, F you, Costas. We'll see how this goes. It's the greatest moment.
My greatest moment is October 13, 2001. I mean, obviously, I don't want to jump all over the. I mean, the 9/11 thing with George Bush was great, but October 13, 2001, Jeremy Giambi for the Oakland Athletics is chugging towards home plate. The ball has been hit into right field, gets thrown into the infield. Seemingly, you know, it lands halfway up the first baseline. No way it's going to reach Jorge Posada, and then out of nowhere, had no business being, you know, anywhere near the first baseline. Derek Jeter cuts into the camera, grabs the ball, shovels it to Posada, who tags out Jeremy Giambi. I don't know. I mean, because all the time you talk about intangibles with baseball players, right? And it's you know, oh, he's got a good nose for the ball, right? Like, and you just know it, right? It's not something you can measure in any metric. There's just some players who know how to be in the right place at the right time. There's some players who just know how to make a play. And Derek Jeter was that guy, right? He could find the moment. And in that moment, like, had absolutely. Now, he claims later on that they practiced that play in spring training. I don't know that I believe that.
Spring training was a long time ago.
Right.
Yeah.
That they practiced that specific play, but he came out of nowhere. And I just remember because I thought it was over, and then he was there, grabs the ball, shovels it, guy's out, and it's just like, what just happened? What just happened? Yeah. It was unbelievable. So yeah, that's my favorite favorite baseball moment. Because again, I think it just exemplifies something I love about the game is how many different ways there are to be good and to be important out on that field.
I have a very weird take on Derek Jeter.
Uh-oh.
I think, look, no, I objectively believe this, and I mean this both ways. I go, first of all, the fact that he wasn't in a unanimous Hall of Fame selection is what's wrong with the Hall of Fame selection. Like, if there was ever a human being in the world that should have been a unanimous Hall of Fame selection, it's Derek Jeter. But I also think, in a weird way, he's one of the more, like, his body of work is more about moments necessarily. He would probably never the best shortstop in the American League at any given year. Like, so in a weird way, he's a little bit overrated because he had all of those moments, which were fantastic. And I don't think Derek Jeter is Derek Jeter if he played for the Oakland Athletics. I think in a weird way, he's overrated, but also the fact that he wasn't a unanimous first ballot Hall of Famer makes me just hate and frustrated with how the Hall of Fame works, if that makes sense.
Well, because again, I think it speaks to how do you evaluate the game? Is it just numbers? You know, Derek Jeter, I think, makes the argument that it's not necessarily just numbers, right? He wasn't, you're right, in any given season, he probably was never the best defensive shortstop. He was probably never the best offensive shortstop in any given season, especially in that era where you had so many, you know, you had the Miguel Tejadas and the Alex Rodriguez. You had so many, you know, great, Nomar Garcia-Parra, you know, so many great hitting shortstops of that era. You know, but for some reason,
Alex Rodriguez.
Well, right, A-Rod. Well, although you know, he eventually played third base for the Yankees, but you know, I think he's somebody where you got to look at the totality of the work, right? And the fact that baseball's a grind, like it's an everyday thing, and that dude showed up to play every single day, and showed up not just to play, but to win every single day.
Mike Trout's Mike Trout on the Angels. I don't know if Derek Jeter is Derek Jeter on the Angels. That's just kind of how I.
Yeah, and I agree. If Jeter's grinding every day for the D-backs, you know, I don't know that Derek Jeter is who he is. He's hitting 275 and hitting 15 dingers and knocking in 80 runs.
Let's also recognize the fact that the man did get 3,000 hits, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not very many players in baseball, because that's a skill too, right? Staying on the field long enough to collect all those hits.
Well, I don't know. Did you guys watch any of the Reds game by chance last night? And Joey Votto was mic'd up.
I saw a headline about this.
Oh my God! I could listen to Joey Votto 24/7. But he was talking about his biggest thing that he's most proud of is getting on the field 160 games a year, every single year, and the fact that, you know, he's had the career he's had and he didn't get called up until he was 24 and whatever. So I agree with you. I mean, Mike Trout, Jacob deGrom, I don't know if he's ever going to pitch again. I mean, these guys who can't stay on the field.
This isn't going to be. This is only going to be audio, right?
Only audio. Yeah. Oh man.
I'm sure Scherzer's 38-year-old arm is going to hold up this season too, Kelly.
Jeez Louise.
10 years old. I blame Lenny Dykstra.
Yeah,
everybody else blames Lenny Dykstra for everything too.
Yeah.
So I'm not alone.
Speaking of that 86 team, the documentary about the 86 team where Keith Hernandez has the cat or the dog or whatever throughout the whole thing, that whole documentary is one of the best documentaries you'd ever see.
The weird thing about that team, Chad, is how wild it got after that. I mean, there's a reason they never repeated.
Well, and the players like Ron Darling and Bobby Ojeda, they were party boys. I mean,
well, and then they bring David Coda in. That's helpful.
Yeah,
David Coda, who was going to be a broadcaster for ESPN this year, but has been in the Yankees booth for a long time. And I'll tell you, my favorite Yankees booth is Michael Kay, David Cohn, and Paul O'Neill. Because I mean, first of all, I mean they're brilliant analysts, right? I mean, you have a hitter, you have a pitcher. They were both great at their respective positions. So the analysis, but the stories are hilarious because you have two old teammates, right? And David Cohn was a notorious party guy. So that was great. Let's get back a little bit. Advertising on the jerseys. I hate this. And again, I'm a Yankees fan. We don't even put the players' names on the jerseys. And now we're gonna put Dunkin' Donuts or something on there. I don't like it. You know, and again, like I mean, I'm a capitalist. I'm not against them making money, but baseball's already milking me pretty good. Right? I mean, I'm buying the MLTV subscription. I'm doing all this stuff. I'm watching Hal Steinbrenner. I'm supposed to, as a Yankees fan, I'm supposed to be super excited about how good Hal Steinbrenner is at saving money on his team. I'm not excited about that. Bring back the reanimated corpse of George Steinbrenner so the Yankees can be evil again and buy all the free agents. That's what I want. This is entertainment. Damn it.
We did that. We did it across town. We'll see if it works.
At least it's fun to watch.
Yeah. Well, and the union guy in me just loves the idea of paying the players all the money because the owners seem to be doing just fine based on everything that came out during the CBA.
I'm for everybody
so
making
I think
money.
that's an interesting conversation, Chad, because when everybody thinks about the fights and they think about the Max Scherzers and all of that, but one of the problems with minor league baseball as we continue to move through this, these players' fights aren't about Max Scherzer.
Amen.
They're just simply not. They're about the guy making the league minimum. They're about that pitcher who you only have pitched for one inning every 4 games, and the minute his fastball goes under 96 miles an hour, you're grinding out. And listen, I'm not saying there's any baseball player that makes it to the bigs, that makes it there for any extended period of time, that is going to be poor. But I just think these fights always escalate into a rich owner versus a rich baseball player, and there's a lot more to those fights than that. Well, I also wish they get their bleep together so we could have started opening season on opening day.
Well, and that's what I think makes part of this opening day so special is it wasn't that long ago where I was pretty convinced this might not be happening this year, and this might be the end of professional baseball if they didn't get there. And you see some of the behind-the-scenes reports now of how close we were to not having baseball, and that would have been deadly. I mean, we talked about earlier how hard it is to get young people to watch baseball. You take a year off after a couple of COVID years, good luck, man.
Yeah, and if you're a real nerd like I am, like one of the reasons I like Max Scherzer is because he's the players rep, right? And he doesn't he gets it. I mean, Max Scherzer's grandkids are probably never going to have to worry about money, but that's not what he's in the room fighting about.
And he was aggressively fighting on behalf of those people making the league minimum and the minor leaguers who are, having to basically live on the street and eat scraps in order to work their way through. So
if anybody's interested in a great documentary about minor league baseball, which is another whole universe unto itself, Bull Durham. No, I'm kidding. Not Bull. Bull Durham's a great movie, but it's not a documentary. The Battered Bastards of Baseball is about.
I've seen it. It's so good. So good.
Well, also, I mean, because first of all, it's cool because it's Kurt Russell playing minor league baseball, and his dad was a minor league baseball player. So you have this, very famous actor playing minor league baseball, but then also like the fight to keep for independent minor league teams. To keep that open, that was also an interesting story. So one of my connections to baseball is the Minot Mallards, which don't exist anymore. We have the Saber Dogs in town now. We've had sort of a series, but back when I was a kid, we had the Minot Mallards. And, I was in the teenage years. I was enjoying the heights of those 90s, Yankees teams, but also in the summers, I was out with Josh Askvig, who is now at AARP of North Dakota. He and I were working at those Mallards games. He was selling snacks. I was keeping score and running. They had like a bouncy house for the kids and stuff. We were a couple of teenagers, and we spent every one of those summer nights out at the baseball park. And in addition to that, we were a host family for some of the teams. So I got to hang out with these guys. That's how bored baseball players are when they're not playing baseball. They're hanging out with a teenager. But they used to all come over to my house. We'd play basketball in the driveway. We'd play video games. And it was like straight out of a movie, right? You had, the young guys who weren't good enough to sign, so they were trying to, get noticed and hoping a scout would turn up at a game or something. You had the 42-year-old guy who'd played in Mexico the year before, who's still, living on the dream that somebody's going to see him play shortstop and call him up to the majors. There's what's that saying? It's hard not to be romantic about baseball. I mean, but the life that those guys live, they don't make a lot of money. It is such a struggle, and the fight that some of these guys put on to make it to the majors is amazing.
Yeah, and I think Dickinson, and does Minot have the college summer league now?
So Saber Dogs is our team.
The Bismarck Larks is one of the best things that's come to Bismarck in a long time. That place is packed. I've been walking into that stadium before and people asking me if I have extra tickets, right? It feels like almost like a major league park where people are looking. But the smells, it is an incredible thing. And so if people aren't going out to the Wooden Bat League in Dickinson and Minot and Bismarck, they should check it out because it is such a great experience. The kids love it. It's fun. It's just wonderful.
There's nothing like being at the ballpark on a nice like a nice summer evening. I get a tear every time I hear that Alabama song, Cheap Seats. I get a tear in my eye. Like I remember, like that's how it was, right? The Majors called up old what's his name, like that's such a big part of my life.
And by the way, the cool part about that is with the Larks and in Dickinson, it's the big sticks and all of those things is you don't become attached to players so much because it's different kids every year. So the programs have to make it fun, have to make it entertaining, have to make it what it is supposed to be like. I've done a lot of cool things in my life. I've been blessed. One of my favorite things and I'm most proud of is I was the head of the Dickinson Baseball Club for 10 years. And, we put turf on our field. We rebuilt our concession stand. I love our ballpark. We got really good lights instead of bad lights. I'm really proud of that because it is a thing that not only for American Legion and all of that, but it is a thing that my community does now that didn't exist before I was there. And those games are just an absolute riot. It is just a really fun thing to have in your community.
And it's pretty good baseball. I mean, these are Division I baseball players a lot of the time. And, Kelly, you talked earlier about the facilities. I mean, I think about the Bismarck American Legion facility, even the Mandan facility, the Jamestown facility, which not a lot of people know about. That's super nice. I haven't seen the Dickinson one.
There's two awesome ballparks in Williston, North Dakota. The Minot Field, they put turf on it after the flood. We can have a longer talk about turf, but when you play spring baseball in North Dakota, turf is really, really
I understand the reasons. It's hard to watch baseball on anything other than grass. It just is. I get it. I understand why they did it. I'm not complaining about it too much, but
this isn't the old AstroTurf.
It is better. It is better.
But we have unbelievable ballparks in this state. There are. We didn't even talk about the two in Fargo. We have great field.
My family does this geocaching, right? Where we go and it's a friend of mine calls it nerd hiking, where you have a GPS and you go out and you find little treasures that people hide. So we were out.
We're all going to call it nerd hiking from now on.
It is. It totally is nerd hiking. We were out and I found one up in Sherwood, North Dakota. And we went up there and we found it. And whoever had hit it had written a little history. And it was hidden at the baseball field in Sherwood. And they were saying that this baseball field is older than Yankee Stadium. There have been people playing baseball on this field in tiny Sherwood, North Dakota, up along the Canadian border. By the way, that's a great story in North Dakota, too. My grandma used to tell me every little town across North Dakota had a baseball team. And on Sundays after church, all the farmers, or maybe it was Saturdays, I forget what she said, but all the, everybody for the local, like the Ryder team would go over to the McCody team and play. And, they had rivalries and everything else. So, the story, the way this sport is interwoven in our society is pretty amazing. All right, one last question. 2023 schedule is going to be more balanced, which means teams are going to be playing out of their division. On one hand, this kind of makes me a little bit excited because I like it. the Yankees are one of the great iconic teams of baseball, and I like it when we go play some like the Dodgers, right? Or the Cubs or some of these other teams. I wouldn't mind seeing that more often, but also does it become less special if it happens more often?
I don't think so. I think you have to combine it with expanding the playoffs. Those division rivalries, those division games and those things make it a lot. The division games were so huge when there was only one pennant winner and the Yankees and the Red Sox. You're never going to lose the Yankee-Red Sox thing. It's built into anybody's DNA that cares about those two programs. But I think you have to combine it with the expansion of the playoffs, and I think it's good for everybody. I think it's great.
Kelly, I agree with you. I think, if you're not expanding the playoffs, you've got the AL East just beating the hell out of each other all season long, when you've got the Rays and the Jays and the Yankees and the Red Sox. And
I noticed you left the Orioles out of that list.
Well, I could talk about the NL West in addition.
You can't have four teams with winning records without one team in the AL East just getting the snot knocked out of them.
Yeah, going 40 and 120. But I agree. I think you have to have some balance if these wild cards are good. What are there, 3 wild cards now?
Postseason's up to 12 teams. Yeah. All right, now should we do predictions? And by the way, I'm terrible at this because this is the same reason why I can't play fantasy baseball, because I'm a terrible homer, and I just get all the Yankees on my team because that's who I want to watch and that's who I care about. But predictions for the season, Kelly.
The Mets will pay Bobby Bonilla money.
How many years does Bobby Bonilla have left on that contract? By the way,
I don't know.
I think it's only a few left now.
Yeah. So no, the downside to my day job is I don't get to follow all of these things. I predict the Mets are going to be very good next year. I think we need to give Buck Showalter a year. I think we need to let them spend all this money and get I think my prediction is that I think it's hilarious that we have a Yankees fan on this thing, and he'll have the third highest payroll of the 3 fans on the team, which is fascinating to me.
Yeah, and he'll be crying poverty throughout the whole season too.
Yeah, well, we haven't won a World Series since 2009, which in Yankees world is a major, major drought. And I can tell you, all the Yankee fan mailing lists and subreddits and everything that I go to, we are not a happy fan base right now. I mean,
my dark horse pick in the National League, which hurts me to say it, is because I'm a Mets fan, is the Phillies.
Yeah, well, that's I mean, with the Yankees, if they start winning some games, if weirdly Josh Donaldson's calf stays intact for the entire year, and he rakes, then I guess, nothing succeeds like success, and Brian Cashman will look like a winner. But I don't know. I liked what are the Yankees if not the evil empire, right? That's the role we're supposed to play in baseball. Let's play it, right? I don't want to go on a goodwill tour. Look, we're not spending as much money now. To hell with that. Let's spend. We make the most money. Let's spend all the money.
Yeah, look at you, capitalist. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. That's how. I love when people give me a tough time for the Dodgers payroll. It's not my money. I mean, if
some of it
these
is
are the rules.
Yeah,
I suppose some of it.
All the T-shirts and the hats and the streaming subscriptions and everything else. It sure is your money.
Yeah, I suppose it is a small part of it, though. So my prediction is I'm going all Dave Roberts. Dodgers are winning the World Series this year.
And I do have one prediction: the Dickinson baseball team is going to win state, and the Dickinson fast pitch softball team is going to win state.
Ooh, bold. Although I think Kelly might be a little.
We're going to win 2 state championships this spring.
Kelly's.
I feel like Kelly might have better data points on that prediction than you and I would, Rob. I'm going to believe him on this one.
They're
true.
both rated number 1 right now. So
that's true.
We have great programs from a town of 20,000 people, and we're proud of them, man.
well, this is probably enough. My prediction: I think the Yankees are going to win the World Series. Although that might be more of a hope. More of a hope at this point. Although honestly, I hope we just get a great story, right? Like after the 90s strike, you had although that had also ended up unhappy, but you had Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa ripping dingers and stuff. I hope something like that happens absent performance-enhancing drugs. But
I want the Angels to have a run. I think Trout deserves it. He's such a cool guy. He doesn't do a ton of endorsements. He doesn't do a ton of commercials. So he's about as low key as the best player of a generation could possibly be.
He's a great baseball personality. You know what he loves doing when he's not doing baseball? Meteorology. He's like a huge. I'm not kidding. He's a huge weather nerd, right? Like I don't know. Baseball just brings these personalities in, right? You just Mike Trout with all his millions, right? Like top, like one of the greatest baseball players to play the game currently and historically.
Forever.
I mean, he's going to end up first ballot Hall of Fame, no problem. And spends his days on his off time with like weather apps, like tracking tornadoes in the Midwest. Like that's his thing.
So I feel like Kelly brought up the Angels doing well just because of that Syndergaard text tweet that he sent our way about Syndergaard taking shots at Mookie Betts. I hope the Angels do terrible this year.
Oh, that's mean. That's really mean.
Syndergaard's funny. He did well in New York. He'll do well in LA.
Yeah.
I also.
Personally, I don't mean on the field. He's never on the field.
I like watching Shohei Ohtani too. Like the two-way player. I mean, what a rarity that is these days. That's also one of the things I love about baseball is it's considered America's pastime. It's probably but for soccer, name a sport that's more international than baseball. from Latin America to Asia. I mean, it's pretty wonderful. All right, we've probably spent enough time on baseball. If you're still listening to this, you are a very dedicated baseball nerd. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'm just hoping for a great season. Thanks for joining, guys.
Thanks.
Want more political news like this? Visit inforum.news/port to get 3 months of unlimited access to our news network for only 99 cents a month. Don't wait. Get this limited time offer at inforum.news/port now.